Mr. President, we've come to the end of the, I'm sad to say, the audience question portion. We have had ample time, however, to mull over the question posed to you at the top of this session, and that is a piece of history heretofore never shared in public from your administration. The moment is upon us. It has arrived. Wondering if you've given it any thought.
I've given it some thought. In fact, that's all I could think of all the time I was trying to answer questions.
I feared that would happen.
Yeah.
I passed him notes.
Well, I'll give you one piece of information that has been secluded from the public as part of a text of one of my books. It's obvious from the previous panel, three of whom were here to discuss the Middle East. Only one of them have read my book, so I presume this has been hidden from the public.
I could tell that hurt.
At Camp David, before we went there, Sadat said, let's have a comprehensive peace agreement. The only two things he insisted was protect Palestinian rights and Israel withdraw from Egyptian territory. Those two things. And we accomplished those eventually. But during the meantime, there was gross disharmony. We were there 13 days. After the third day, I never let Begin and Sadat see each other, because the first 3 days, as Rosen knows, in our cabin, we had a nice little room back there, they were at each other's throats. They couldn't talk harmoniously for 10 minutes before they began to resurrect ancient history and you killed my people and that sort of thing. And so I separated them. And so for 10 days, I went back and forth. One day, Sadat had a visit from the foreign minister of Israel, Moshe Dayan. And Dayan told Sadat, in effect, that the Israelis were not going to yield on any more points. Sadat was a very close friend of Asa Weizmann, who was later president of Israel and a good friend of mine and got along well with Sadat. But this was Moshe Dayan coming in. And when Moshe Dayan told Sadat that, Sadat decided to go home to Egypt. And he didn't tell me. But I found out, I think, from Dr. Brzezinski, he's here, he would remember, that Sadat had ordered a helicopter back to Washington to go home. This was about the 7th day, I think, of the negotiations. And I was stricken, because Sadat had been my friend, personally, and his wife was a friend of Rosa, and our kids even knew each other. Anyway, I didn't know what to do. Sadat was leaving. I couldn't do anything about it. So I had been wearing a sports shirt and blue jeans all the time we were negotiating. And Sadat was wearing leisure suits, which you mentioned earlier. Begin always dressed with a shirt and tie and a coat. But I went in and changed my clothes. I took off my blue jeans and my sports shirt, and I put on a suit and a tie. And I went in the back room, and I knelt down and prayed. And I asked God to help me. And then I walked over to Sadat's cabin. And he had all of his suitcases out in front, and all of his aides were there ready to load the suitcases on the helicopter. And I went in to his room, and I told everybody else to get out. And Sadat and I stood with our noses almost touching. And I told him that he had betrayed me and betrayed his own people. And that if he left, our friendship was severed forever. And the proper relationship between the United States and Egypt would be dealt a severe blow. And he went over in a corner by himself, and he came back and said, I'm staying. So that's...
Thank you, Mr. President.